We're rolling into week 12, and we got a Thursday night game to look at here. We got the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to go player by player and see how fantasy points could be scored. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're using these videos to help you set your lineups. We're going deep on the waiver wire, and we're doing deep dives on these players, especially the trending guys, every single day on as many players as possible. Click that button right now. Stop missing out. But we're starting off with a 37 over-under. This game, in the last 3 times they played, which has been recent, hit the over 2 out of the last 3 times. However, there's a chance for precipitation in this matchup, even snow. There's a chance for that. It's an 85% rate. That's as of last night per oddshark.com. So we're watching that heavily going into this game. Could be a factor, could be a non-factor. Sometimes there's rain, there's snow. It's just barely enough to make an impact, if at all. So that's something to pay attention to. That's something to keep close in mind. So really, pregame, you're looking at the field, you're looking at what the weather's doing, you're paying attention to that. This is early morning Thursday, and things can change for that front. I'm not a weather guy, but Vegas has a 37 over-under here because both defenses can get it done. Both defenses can be locked down, and both defenses are very tricky to play against. So when you're looking at both these quarterbacks, Jameis, Winston, and you're looking at Russell Wilson, they're dart throws for the week, and there's a lot of other options to look at. But if you're gambling, Jameis Winston throws YOLO balls downfield and could gamble. Kind of the same with Russell Wilson, but he's more calculated, less YOLO, and more calculated with the deep balls, but you will get it pushed downfield. We're going to start things off looking at the Browns running backs. Nick Chubb has not been great for fantasy football. Last week, he was over 4 yards per carry. We're coming off a bye week, so we might look a little bit better. The Steelers' run defense has been around league average, up and down when it comes to allowing fantasy points to running backs. Derrick Henry, 12.5, so kind of low for him last week. Austin Eckler, 18.1. Tyrone Tracy, 23. Breece Hall, 26. Alexander Madison, 17.5. So when you're looking at these running backs, they can score at a clip. They're kind of bend but don't break. They've only broken kind of twice this season, 20-plus points to Tracy and Hall. However, outside of that, they'll bend a little bit when it comes to fantasy points to running backs. Jerome Ford's getting a little bit of work. You're watching Nick Chubb. He'll probably get 10 carries or so on the ground. Maybe that's 10 carries for 50 yards. Not much work in the passing game, though, because Jameis Winston wants to push the ball downfield deep. He's aggressive with it deep. So not much flow in the passing game to the running backs. But if this weather is sticky, you might catch some volume. And plus, with volume, there's always a chance for a touchdown there. He's averaging 3.1 yards per carry on the season. However, the last game was above 4. It was a little bit better. We're watching him ramp up. He's just a desperate start right now due to the touches. There's a lot of teams on bye this week. That's going to create more opportunities to start a guy like this. Most of the time, if you're blessed at running back, you're not looking at him. If you're not, you might have some hard decisions. Honestly, tough matchup, and we're going to get okay carries. You're just kind of just praying to the fantasy gods when you're looking at Nick Chubb this week. When you're looking at these wide receivers, anybody can get it. We got a carousel effect with the Browns wide receivers. So when you break this down, Jeudy has been getting the target share. Cedric Tillman has been very explosive and off and on when it comes to fantasy production. He's getting deep targets downfield. He's a YOLO play that has good upside and that's semi-consistent but has some downside. That's the best way to describe him. Elijah Moore's been getting work, short targets. This isn't the best matchup to look for 3 wide receivers here that could hit. You might catch one. It's game script dependent here, and you may rank them like either Jeudy, Tillman, Moore, or Tillman, Jeudy, Moore due to the deeper targets, but it's really series by series, play by play on how these wide receivers are going to hit. The ball will be pushed downfield. That's what Jameis Winston does. That is something we know to be true. We know he's going to be looking to put it deep, and we know we're going to get some good ADOTs from Tillman and Jerry Jeudy, more than likely. Elijah Moore might get sprinkled some of those close targets, might get some more red zone looks. That's something to pay attention to. He was on the injury report earlier this week. Not right now. They're bend but not break the wide receivers too. Josh Downs went off. Jalen Tolbert, weird game scripts, did some things against them. That being said, they don't really break the wide receivers. They'll allow a little bit something. If you're blessed with other options and you feel like it's kind of risky and your gut's saying that, it's okay to go the other way. I would listen to your gut with this because it is a tricky matchup. You're looking at the Chief here, David Njoku. They will allow fantasy points to tight ends. Not a horrendous clip or anything like that, but they're very consistent, allowing around 10 points a game almost. Two tight ends, 11.4 the last 3 weeks, 10 points the last 5 weeks, about 10 points a game to tight ends. Njoku's going to get volume, and the thing is, they're so locked down on wide receivers. They're tight against the run, bend but not break on both those. Teams go to the tight end. Look for David Njoku to get volume. I'm not guaranteeing fantasy points, but look for him to get volume and opportunities. With it being a colder game, potential snow, that could be something to look at. I imagine, since I'm in Ohio, I'm in southern Ohio, we saw wet snow. I imagine it would be wet snow coming their way, but I don't know for sure. If that's true, if that's what they're saying on OddsShark, that's true. That could lean favorable for David Njoku on some of the targets. I look for him to get okay volume in this matchup, and I think if you got David Njoku, I think you already got plans with what you want to do with him. We're looking at the running backs here for the Steelers. We're looking at Jaylen Warren as a side piece here. He's a gamble. He's someone you're looking at, though. If you're hurting with bye weeks this week at running back, he might be a play to look at. You're looking at Najee Harris as a guy that's very consistent at getting workload. Double-digit touch is easy. And if the weather's rough, look for them to lean on the running backs a little bit more. I believe I saw a stat on Tomlin a few weeks ago leading into that game that when the weather's a little bit rough, he leans heavily on the running backs. That's something you may want to look at. And you're looking at the Browns. They will allow fantasy points to running backs, but it's hit or miss too, and it's not like they're breaking either. They're bend but don't break. They only broke once to Devin Singletary and to J.K. Dobbins. Outside of that, it's about 12 to 15. Najee Harris is probably good for about 10 to 12 in this game. Maybe a little bit more if we cross the goal line. Jaylen Warren, if we cross the goal line, but with the workload projected from the previous weeks, probably around 8 to 10-ish, somewhere around there. That's just a random guess, but that's usually just as good as projections from a random algorithm because you're just guessing, you're getting a feel, and that's going off the gut. That's probably close, and you're throwing in touchdown upside on top of that. Both of these players have it. They both get a lot of work in serious moments. Looking at these two running backs, you're thinking really hard on Najee Harris. You're thinking hard on Jaylen Warren if you're really hurting at running back due to the bye weeks. George Pickens, it's hard to bench him. It's hard to bench George Pickens. It's very hard. Like, he gets so much work. The targets are deep downfield. It's hard to look at him seriously and think of him as a bench play on any given Sunday, no matter what the matchup is. You know the targets are going to be there. You know they're going to be deep downfield. The target share is almost to 30%. That's elite. The ADOT's up there at 13.1. He's got elite work rate. You just roll with the elite work rate, see what happens. This matchup's tricky. It's a Thursday night. Thursday night games are tricky. I could see it running bad, but fundamentals say you roll with that. If your gut says different and you're blessed at wide receiver, then I understand. More than likely, the fundamental says when you got a wide receiver getting about a 30% target share, the ADOTs in double digits, way past 12, 13.1 in this case, you're just rolling with it every week, seeing what you can eat. And that's what you're doing with George Pickens more than likely. And the Browns will bend and break more often to the wide receivers than running backs. We have 3 games of over 20 PPR fantasy points. They broke the Marcus Valdez-Scantling, so deep balls can break on them. Quentin Johnson, deep ball guy. Zay Flowers, I believe there were deeper targets in that game. T. Higgins, deep target guy. A.J. Brown, we know him. Terry McLaurin, deep ball guy. There is a pattern here. Malik Neighbors gets all the targets. Hard to project. Brian Thomas Jr., speed downfield. Week 2 of the season. Brandon Cooks, not really a deep ball guy, but he gets a deep ADOT whenever he's healthy on the field. There is a trend here. George Pickens matches that trend. So I wouldn't be too scared of the matchup, the weather for this. I know the volume's going to be his way, and I know it's going to be the right volume for him. You're looking at the tight ends here. You're looking at Pat Freiermuth. You're looking at Dwayne Washington. They're tight ends that are going to get some volume. Washington's better as a pass blocker in this offense, but he's got upside around the red zone. That's for deep leagues, 16 plus. He could always surprise on you due to that. Freiermuth's going to be the guy getting most of the workload. He's up and down due to that, but that volume could be there. The Browns are kind of stingy to tight ends. They allow a lot of fantasy points to Taysom Hill, so that's really skewing the numbers. Outside of that, they're locked down. 2 games with 10 plus fantasy points. Grant Calcaterra and Mark Andrews. After that, they've been locking them down. Tricky matchup, might get more work. You're looking for red zone work. You're looking for opportunities there. Just red zone gambles, honestly. Red zone gambles because of the tight end spot, shorter ADOTs, the volumes are up and down. I look for them to have okay chance of hitting. Maybe if I had a chance rate, maybe about 50% off and on in this matchup. If I ran this game 100 times, I imagine pushing 50%. That did give you 10 plus fantasy points. And I'm looking at Pat Freiermuth and maybe a few games sprinkled in for Dwayne Washington. For the red zone looks, he did have 42 yards in his last game off 2 catches. That's something to note. Washington has upside, but not enough consistency for fantasy football. But that's the matchup for Thursday night. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.